Hi everyone. Today we're going to look at how to use OneNote and OneNote Class Notebook in your Microsoft Teams class. And we'll also look at how you set that up, how you can create worksheets to assign to students, how you can use your existing PDF worksheets as OneNote notebook page assignments. And then of course I'll actually show you the assigning it to the students, what it looks like on the student end, and what it looks like for you to grade a notebook page. So first, you need to navigate over to one of your teams. So here I have one just for demonstrating the class notebook feature for us today. So the first thing you need to do once you create a new team, or as long as you haven't clicked this class notebook tab and set it up yet, is you'll need to set up your OneNote class notebook. So once you click this button, you can go with blank or from existing notebook content. Most likely, if you're here watching this video, you're going to start off with a blank notebook. You don't have any content yet. It explains to you some of the sections that I'm going to show you in a bit. So this is a really nice setup process that explains to you all the pieces of OneNote. So the collaboration space, this is a space where teachers can edit the content and students. So whatever pages you put on the collaboration space, everybody in the team, teachers and students, can edit those pages. The content library is for teachers to edit, and students can only view what's in there. So you can think of this as a resource library, places where you're going to put stuff that you want the students to be able to access, but they don't need to edit. They're not going to use this for a submission for an assignment. And then you have the teacher-only section. This is a private space for you, the teacher. You're going to put all of the stuff that you don't want students to see, maybe lesson plans you've created, possibly a place for you to store all the assignments before you actually assign them to the students. That's what I do. And then you actually have the student's notebook. So each student in your class is going to have a section where all their notebook content is, where only the stuff that's for their specific notebook exists. And on the student end, they'd only see their name. The teacher's going to see all the students' names in the class. And so teachers can edit that content technically, but the students can only edit their own content. They don't see the other students' content. Now the next thing, and this is probably a big question, is the sections. What sections should you set up for this? And so these are the default ones they assign to you: handouts, class notes, homework, quizzes. You could set it up to be something like that. What I like to do is I like to set it up based on units or modules so that the student's content is ordered by that. Some elementary school teachers, you may want to set it up by subject. So you may want to have a maths one. You may want to have English or reading and then a writing one, as well as any other subject. So you may want to set it up depending on your classroom and the grade level, however you'd like to organize your content essentially. So students will go, they'll see these sections, and then they'll have pages of work inside of those sections. You can almost think of these as if you had one of those big notebooks, whatever, 5-subject notebook, and it has the dividers in it, and that's what these are. These are all the dividers, the sections to break apart your notebook. So I'm actually going to change it because, again, what I prefer is I like to have units. So I say unit 1, and then maybe you say the name of the unit, depending on your content. Unit 2. And I'm not going to give them all names. I'm just going to put the names, but you understand what I'm saying at this point. So you make it based on your units. Now, sometimes what I like to do also is I just throw in an additional section that I like to call like other, or you can call it like additional work, because sometimes you assign something and it doesn't fit into one of these buckets that you preset up, and then you debate with yourself where you should put it. If you just add a section for that kind of work, rainy day work, whatever you want to call it, substitute work, maybe you want to add another section just to kind of think of at this point. And so now it's going to get your notebook ready. And so once the notebook is ready, the students would have access to it. The students can just open up the notebook, and they would see their, the content library, their sections, as well as anything else. When you first create it, it actually gives you some, how to get started type of pages. If you've used OneNote before, you may want to click on this and so you can see the entire notebook. What I actually like to do is I like to either A, not work with it in Teams, and either work with it in the web browser or using the OneNote app. Here's why. Notice how, this is shrunk on me. This is a smaller area. I don't need to see all these other things. So a very easy way that you can edit your notebook is just click this, open in browser. And you can open in the browser or in the app. So I'm just going to open in the browser for now, just for us to look at what we have here. And so, everything is added here. So this welcome section, this is an area that all the students can see. What I like to do in this welcome section, or any tabs that I add over here, is I just like to, this is where I provide resources. So even though there's the content library, I like to provide just general resources in this area here. So notice getting started, student notebooks, content library. So these are really nice things. If you're getting started and you first open your notebook, take a look at these, read through them. It might be very helpful hints for you. What I'm going to do is I just end up deleting these. So I create my own page here, and then I end up just deleting these. So you can right click on it and delete them. And then I create my own thing like welcome to computer science, whatever your course is. And then you can add pictures. We can go over here. You can insert pictures. So I'm just going to do from online because I don't have anything prepared. So computer. I designed this to be different. Of course, I have like school logo I put on here, other things, but I make a little welcome page for them. So you can have that, and we can resize this. We can type content. Hello, class. You can set up whatever pages you want. As soon as students open their notebook, what do you want them to see, essentially? Then you have this collaboration space, and the collaboration space is you're going to want to put pages in here that are specific to things you want students to be able to collaborate on. A page where you're doing some brainstorming, mind mapping, some kind of collaborative activity. You can also create pages for different groups. So the different groups each have their own page, and they can collaborate and work. There's lots of creative ways you can use this space. What I want you to know is these individual sections, you can also add sections. So notice this one's called using the collaboration space. You may want to have unit 1 have its own section in the collaboration space. I'm just going to keep with the theme of that I said was unit 1 for this, and then you can delete these example ones that first show up. So I can go over, I can say, okay, what is the internet? And then I can have students all write in here what they think the internet is. It can get a little chaotic, so you may want to find a better way to organize this. Possibly you create a table and you put all your students' names there, and then they type in their spot. So you may want to set up an organization scheme ahead of time. If you've done any collaborative document work with your students, you know how it can get a little chaotic. Someone erases someone else's work, etc. The other thing is the content library. And so very similar, if you have resources, let's say readings for the students, things that they don't need to submit something with it, you can use the content library. So you can create a section for each of your units or modules or your content areas, and you can provide different pages in there that are for students to use as a resource. So you'd say to your students, go to the content library, I want you to read such and such page, or you'd explain where you want to put that. Now the teacher-only section, I use this teacher-only section for all of my assignments before I actually distribute them to students. So obviously, after you have you may want to plan ahead. So sometimes I plan the whole week out over the weekend. I create these different tasks for the students. You don't want to assign it to them all at once. One, that's overwhelming. Two, they may not do it in the proper order you want or whatever it may be. So I put them all in here so they're ready. And this is a great spot because when you assign a page, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, to students, then you need to have a spot in the notebook where you're pulling that page from in order to distribute it to the students. And then, of course, here are your students. So I only have one student in here. All your students would show up here in this. If you notice, there's like multiple tabs showing up. That's because this is like its own notebook inside of itself. And so here's the students view here. And all the sections we created will show up here. And so when you assign work to students and you tell it to go in certain spots, they will appear in these spots in the student's notebook for each student with one click of a button. So let's say Unit 1. Let's create a section inside of the teacher-only spot. And I'm just going to talk about creating these worksheets now and some things like that. So now you can go and you can create your assignment, your worksheet, however you want to think about it. And so you give it a title. And we'll call this, I'm just going to call it worksheet. Obviously you may have a particular name for the assignment. Maybe you do things like me where it's a numbering system, so it's like activity 1.1, and then you give it some kind of name or something like that. And so now you can type some content. You can write whatever you want to write here for instructions for the students. You can get some information. What's really great about this is, there's so much different content you can put into OneNote, and it appears really nicely. So you can put URLs in to different websites. So let me see here. What can we get? I put my school website. Put a URL in, automatically turns to a nice hyperlink. You can edit that if you want it to be a friendly, hyperlink. Instead, so you can do things like that. If you go up to insert, you can see a lot of the other options. For instance, we may want to add a video, something like that. We can add audio, so I can talk to and give some verbal instructions for the students. If I just go over and you put in a YouTube URL, this is pretty neat about OneNote. I can just go in, put a YouTube URL, and it automatically puts the player in there. So that's really great. So in your worksheet, you can add a video, and the students can just play it right from within the worksheet. You just paste the URL and it automatically generates this. There's a number of websites that it will do this with. For instance, one of the things that I really like teaching computer science is in my intro course, I use Microsoft MakeCode Arcade and or any of the MakeCode. And if you paste those URLs for projects, it actually generates a view for the project where you can see the code and actually play the game right inside of the OneNote notebook. So it's pretty cool. So students really like that. And when they submit their work, I actually have their little game I can play as well as check out the code. So there's lots of really great options like that. Now, what I like to do is, you're going to provide content, whatever you're teaching. You're going to, give some information, and of course, you're going to have some things where you want them to answer questions or whatever it may be. Now, any type of submission area, this is what I like to do. So this would be my helpful hint for this. Is what I like to do is, let's just say this was question number 1. This is question 1. What I do underneath where I ask the students something where I want them to submit, let's say, something to me, or I want them to write something, I always add a table. And then, if you can resize this table, This is actually why I use the app instead. Works a little bit better. I'll show you the app in a minute. Um, you know, then they can type inside this box here, and it's a little easier for you to identify what the students have worked on when you're scrolling through and checking their work. So anytime I do that, I use that there. The other thing I like to do is I tag it, so it's a little easier to identify. So if you go up here, OneNote has some really nice tags. Personally, for me, I use this to-do tag, which is a little checkbox that you can check off for my personal stuff that I use with OneNote a lot. But I use this question tag whenever there's a question, so that I can go down, and another thing that lets me easily identify where the questions are, where I want students to actually submit something. So again, I think using the little question tag and and then a box for the actual student submission is a really good workflow. Now, the other thing that I like to do is I like to design these in the actual app, as I mentioned. So I'm just going to show you the app quick. And essentially, the question is, for a lot of people, how do you open this in the app? So if we go back to Teams, there is an option you can say open an app, and it will open it up. And that's probably the simplest thing for you to do. I'm just going to also show you that. So I switched over to the app. I am a big fan of dark themes, so you'll see that a lot. So that's why it looks like this. You can have just the regular white themed one. But when you go over to your drop-down, you just need to click on More Notebooks. And as long as you're logged in with your school account, that will show up. So here's mine today, and the last ones you've used are going to show up there. So now I can just open up this notebook. And now we can check it out inside of the app in a minute. And I'm going to continue to edit it here just so I can show you that they sync a little bit. So there's my welcome page, shows up great. I can go over to my teacher only section. There it is. Look, that's all the stuff we just worked on. So it's showing up there. You may notice the text is a little bit bigger. That's just because by default in the app I have the zoom set a little bit, so things are a little bit bigger because I use this a lot. So you have that set up. Now, what I like to do, though, is I have a separate notebook from my class, especially because I teach multiple sections of the same class, so I have multiple teams with the same content. And so Davies is the name of my school, so I have this Davies notebook. I'm just going to click on it over here. So in a separate notebook, I usually create content. And so, and then what I do is I just simply, in the app, copy a page, navigate over to my team's notebook, my actual class's notebook, and then I paste it into the content library when I'm done. This allows me so much more easily between years to reuse the content, because now I have it in this notebook that carries me through every year. It's just a spot that I keep all the things for the course. So you may want to create a notebook for each course you teach. I just use one notebook where all my courses are different sections, and I have the pages for all that stuff in there. So however you'd like to use that, but you can just copy and paste right between. So one more thing I wanted to show you about something you can do in the notebook content-wise before I actually show you how to distribute the notebook to your students, or a notebook page for them to be able to work on this, is a very popular feature. So if you have existing PDF worksheets, you can put them into OneNote and allow your students to type and draw right onto them very, very easily. So if you go to Insert, you can go to Printout, and this works on the web version too. So even though I'm in the app, this works in the web version. And you can grab your worksheet, and it takes it, and it puts the PDF file right here. So all I did was click Printout, and I selected a PDF worksheet of mine. I can also select a Word document and do the same thing. And it puts it here. Now, what I like to do is, when I'm doing this, I don't need them to open up the PDF, so I just delete that. Now it's gone, and now it just has this image file of the worksheet. Now, you don't want the students to be able to move around this image file. You want them to be able to work on top of it. So what you do is you right-click, and you just set picture as background. What it does is it puts this picture in the background and allows students to draw and type right on top of it. So set picture as background. Do the same for the other if you have multiple pages. So you need to do it for each one. And then there you go. And now students can just click anywhere. It doesn't line up perfectly, so that's one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of this. And they can type. Now the reason why it's showing up weird right now is just because I'm in the dark theme, so this is the default text color because I'm usually typing on a black background here. So let me just go over and edit that quick so you can see. And if I put black text, there it is. And I can move this around a little bit, but it's not perfect. But your students can move it around and line things up. They can also draw. So if you go up to the Draw tab, this works in the web browser also, no need for the app. They can draw. So maybe your worksheet has them, circle certain things. They can do that, or highlight or underline different things. You have all that. So we do have a highlighter here. So they can highlight things. Maybe you're having them annotate some text, and then they're read through and they highlight and circle things. This is absolutely fantastic for that. So they can go through and they can complete this worksheet like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to, let's remove my name and things because let's assign this to some students. So it's done that. Sometimes let's go check if the web browser version refreshed. It looks like it did. It's loading up the content. Looks like everything's there, which is really great. Sometimes it doesn't sync. So what I want to show you is in the app, what I like to do after I've worked for a while inside the app is I just come over here, I right click on my notebook and I go over to sync and I say sync this notebook. I just force it to sync so it syncs up with the cloud before I go over to Teams to assign something. So we have some pages in our notebook. Now let's say we want to actually give our students this as an assignment. What you do is you go over to the Assignments tab. Now what a lot of the things I'm reading online, a lot of people are trying to assign things in different ways. I really suggest that you use this Assignments tab to assign all the assignments. Anything you want students to be able to edit and submit to you, you want to use assignments, the Assignments feature. And so you're going to create a new assignment. You can give it a title. I'm just going to say worksheet again. Obviously, you're going to have more specific titles for this. You can provide some instructions. You can identify the points. You can identify the rubrics, rubric you're going to use, the class you want to assign it to, etc. But the important thing is you're going to add a resource. Now, you may have added resources by uploading a file or selecting something from your OneDrive. What you're going to do now is you're going to use something from the class notebook, this class's notebook. You'll notice that you can select from these different areas we've talked about. Again, what I like to do before I assign a page is store it in the teacher only section. So students don't see it until we assign it to their pages in their notebook. Inside that teacher only section, these are the sections. So I put the worksheet we want to use inside of the Unit 1 Internet section. And here it is, worksheet, or here's the other one, Activity 1.1 that I put in there. So I'm going to select worksheet. I'm going to attach it. And so now what this does is it attaches it for students to edit their own copy. It's going to put it inside of the student notebook. The next thing it asks is it says, hey, where do you want to put this in the student notebook? So this is where now, if you haven't thought about what you want to create for sections in your student notebook, this may be helpful for you to understand that when you assign work, it's going to go into these sections. So for instance, I have a Unit 1 section, so any worksheets that I assign to students, any assignments I assign to students that I want it to go into or that are related to Unit 1, I'm going to put inside the Unit 1 section. And then that's it. It will assign to the students. So, you may add points. I'm going to add points actually because I want to show off a feature there. And then you click Assign. And what it does is it does take a little bit. So when you're doing a OneNote assignment, I would give it a good amount of time. I like to do it, the night before, just because it does take a minute for it to distribute to the notebooks. So it is assigned. And what I'm going to do is let's go over to the student view and check out what it looks like there. And then I'll show you what it looks like to actually grade the work. Let me pull up my demo student account here. And so we have a student in this example. And notice in the post section, this assignment shows up. They can also go over to the assignments tab and see any assignments they haven't completed yet. Isn't that funny? Let's just open it through posts. That doesn't usually happen to me, especially because it's showing up as a notification for them. So I would say that's an unusual thing. But let's open it through posts. So in the view assignment. All right, I got it working. I'm not sure what it did not like that page at all that I was trying to work on. So that was really strange. But here I am in the student view. And so the student can click on the assignment. And what it should show is, the OneNote page that they can edit, so they can open it. And so I assigned this other one instead of the worksheet because, like I said, that one was giving me some trouble. But you can notice, here's the worksheet. Notice they can interact with it the same. So this is the student view, and they can, anything they can interact with here, and they can type, "This is my response." They can do whatever they need to do to complete the worksheet. And so they have that. As soon as they're done, they just hit close. And they can click turn in. And there's some fun animations that happen when students turn in assignments. And now if I go to the teacher view, and we check out my try again, I have a student that's turned it in. When I click on it, I can see their work. So all my students will show up over here, and I can just click through and see this one page that I assigned. And I can view it, and I can see their work. So notice this is my response showed up. So that's showing up great. And then you can leave some feedback over here for the assignment. You can give them a grade. That's a 100. Type some feedback. You can even draw on it if you want for some feedback. Whatever you want to do, you can type to them to make suggestions. My suggestion would be that you type in red if you do, and you draw in red, just because traditionally that's what the teacher kind of writes in. So it shows up easier for the student. Maybe you like green or something like that instead. Whatever, maybe a different color is my point. Feedback shows up for the student after it says it's returned, and when you want them to receive the feedback and the score, you click return. It returns it to the students. They get a notification saying assignment was returned, and they can see your feedback, and they can see the page and everything. So that is all that. That's the teacher grading aspect. I'm not sure why the worksheet originally didn't work. So I'm going to kind of investigate that more. If you run into that issue, leave me a comment and I can tell you if I found a solution to that happening. There's one last thing that I want to show off before we say goodbye, and that is if you go over to office.com, where you have all your apps, there is a class notebook app. And this is the spot where you manage your notebook. So let's say that later on into the year, you say, I really need to add another section to the student notebook. This is where you can do that. So you go to Manage Notebooks. All your notebooks are going to show up here. So you'll notice, a number of my notebooks from all the times teaching. Here's the one that we were just working on. This is where you can generate a parent-guardian link to the notebook. This is where you can lock the collaboration space if you don't want that there. Set that up if you want a direct link to the notebook. This is where you can get it. And this is where you can add and edit the names of the sections that you have. So if at all, at some point in the year, you decide you need to add another section, edit the name of a section, you can do that here. One thing to note is you cannot delete a section. So you can edit it in its name, and you can add new ones, but you can't delete a section. And that's a safety feature to make sure you don't delete any student content and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. That's it. Again, if you have any questions, leave me a note in the comments below. Let me know what else you want me to cover, more with OneNote, some other topic. Just leave me a comment below, and don't forget to click that subscribe button so you can check out more videos from me in the future. See you later.